Natalie King, wealth
Mm.
and abundance coach and friend. And so I kind of want to hand straight over to you to give us some insight as to like what you stand for, you know, how your business came about and what you do for your clients.
Okay, what I stand for is empowering women around money. That's what I stand for. Because when we get money into the hands of women, I think we can do a lot of good change in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And for far too long, us women have stood on the sidelines, not, owning our worth, not asking for what we want, believing in less than we deserve. And it's like, now is the time to change that. There's never been a better time. And I think just out of respect for those that came before us who did the work, to get us to this point, we got to keep that going. And so that's what I stand for, is empowering women around their money and making more money for themselves and letting them know that it's okay to make more money.
Yeah. And I think that there is still like some societal challenges. Do you find that with your clients of like women being the breadwinners and owning their power? Like,
oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's a slew of money blocks that come up. Like, so to any of your audience that doesn't know, like, money blocks are these limiting beliefs that we have around money that prevent it from coming into our lives. And very, very often, 9 times out of 10, they're unconscious. And what I see with my clients are blocks like, so for example, I know several of my clients have had their families divorce or split up over money, whether it be a gambling addiction or, they're just fighting about money all the time or whatever. And so that leads them then as adults to grow up and think, okay, this money thing is a bad thing. And if I have it, it just creates fights. It just creates discord in the family. Mm-hmm. So they kind of subconsciously push it away. Yeah. And so, and there's I could talk for hours about this in terms of the societal things. So often I have women saying to me, like, they feel guilty for asking for more because they get brought up of like, you only need X amount. And then after that, that's a bit selfish. That's a bit greedy. That's a bit whatever. And the interesting thing is, and the reason why I work with women in particular is, typically speaking, men don't come up against the same challenges. Mm-hmm. It's okay for men to ask for more. It's okay for men to be the breadwinners. It's okay for men to have all the things. But as women, when we show up to do it, like, we come up against these like mental blocks and these challenges that are totally unnecessary and unrequired in order to live our best lives.
Yeah. And I love that you like point that out, because essentially the reason we're having this conversation is because whilst we are in different fields, we both stand for the same thing, and we both strive in our careers to really support women to become more confident beings. Because I think the thing that you're really highlighting there is that there is a gap. There's very, most of the time there is a gap. And so what you're doing is really empowering women to become more confident beings so that they can start owning their worth and their potential, right?
Yes. And it has like, it's life-changing. That's why I love the work that I do. It's truly life-changing when you can draw that line in the sand. Like, so for example, and I work with women entrepreneurs, as you know, and the other day, I was working with a client whose husband is off for, like, he goes away for work all the time. But if she spends like an hour on her business, she feels guilty. And I'm like, that, like, not to shit on men, but I'm like, that's not fair. Yeah. Like, that's not fair that as a society, it's like, you would never ask the dad of like, oh, you must feel such dad guilt, like, going away all the time. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, they go away and they come home and like all is well. A mom goes away for a week, or a mom spends even a day doing their own thing. And it's like, you must feel guilty about that. Or like, how are you keeping it all up? Like, you don't hear that from men of like, how you juggling all the things. It's just like, that's just what they do. And I think as women, we get to do the same thing. It's just, we've told ourselves that we can't, or we put these subconscious like blocks on ourselves.
Yeah. And firsthand that I can relate to that, because we've obviously known each other for some time. And one of the things that we spoke about when we caught up a few weeks ago was how I had that exact experience of someone being on the phone to me saying like, how dare you be a global makeup artist and be on the other side of the world on a photo shoot when you're a mother? And obviously I posed that exact question of like, well, would we be having this conversation if I was a dude? And they were like, well, no, obviously not. And I was like, well, obviously I call bullshit.
Right? Yeah.
So it's so very, very true.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you to share, Emily, like, obviously this is something you feel really passionately about. It's definitely something I feel really passionate about, having been on the, you know, receiving end of a circumstance like that. And I think so many women can relate to that. But what was it that motivated you for you to become the person that really supports women with this?
I think, I mean, this is going to sound, I don't know, a bit conceited or whatever, but like, I think that naturally, I literally was, I feel like I was literally born to do this work that I do. Like, I've been obsessed with money since like day one, coming out of the womb. I'm like, tell me more about this money thing and this opportunity. And like, I got really good at it. I understood it. I started like probably, I don't even know now, probably like almost 10 years ago now, that I started learning about this money mindset thing and how we have the ability to impact our finances, and we're not just victim to the paycheck. And when I realized that I could control how much money I made, I had a power over that, I could influence it, that's when things started really shift. And like, as you know, that's when like I started, you know, building homes and making hundreds of thousands of dollars and building a business and all that kind of stuff. And I got truly empowered by it myself, that I thought, I have to teach other women about this. Like, it just irks me. Like, I can't not do this work, because it just irks me when I see women out there who have to shut down their businesses, who have such passion but are just scraping by, who are saying things to themselves like, you know, I love what I do, but, you know, I might have to shut down my business because it just doesn't pay the bills. And it's just like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I'm a natural problem solver, like solution finder, actually. So like, I can always find the solution no matter what. And so that's what I'm here to help women with, is like finding that solution, like, and as cliche as it is, like dreaming bigger and going after these things. Cause I just don't like, here's the analogy I like to give, is that I think in life, there's like infinite possibilities out there. And I kind of see it like a sky of opportunities. And, you know, I say that somebody is raising their hand to volunteer for the thing. Be it the dream home on the beach in Maui, be it the luxury vacation somewhere for 2 weeks, be it first class travel, whatever it is, a stay-at-home nanny. Somebody is raising their hand to say, I will take that, please and thank you. Right? Like, somebody is. And it's not just going to fall into our lap, these opportunities and these things. And so we have to step up to it and basically, metaphorically, like raise our hand and say, I'm choosing this, I'm choosing me, I'm showing up for this, and then follow the action steps that align with that. But we have to show up for first by saying, this is what I'm choosing and this is what I'm deciding to create in my life.
Yeah, and I think that the reason, you know, what I'm hearing from you, and this thing that resonates with me, is we essentially in our individual fields take a stand for women.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're like, go earn as much money as you want, and I'm like, you need to feel really good about yourself.
Yes, exactly.
So I love that, because it's really this message centered around like owning your potential and standing up for yourself and developing your confidence so that you can really like own what you want for yourself. And I hope you don't mind me saying, but I know that for so many people watching this, they're going to be like, you know, the dream of like the examples you gave, like having a beach home in Maui or flying first class, like those things may seem so out of reach right now. And I know that this is a very big question, but what would you say would be the starting point for someone that's like, I have a massive dream to have those things and to be that woman, but right now there's a real disconnect between where I am and where I want to go?
First thing I would say to that is that it's okay that there's a huge disconnect. Like, because I think so many people get tripped up on that, where they see where they are, where they want to go, they see the disconnect, they see the gap, and they just go like deer in the headlights. Well, that can't be possible for me then. So then they just shut down just before they even like put one foot out there. And so being okay with just kind of accepting like, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to go. There might be like, feel like this much of a gap, or it might feel like a friggin' like 10-mile long journey of a gap to get there. That's okay. So first of all, just being like, interesting, there is a huge gap to where I want to go, and that's okay, because I will never get there unless I make it a possibility for myself. So I'm willing to be okay with the gap and knowing that all I need to do today is just show up for whatever that first step is that's presented to me.
Yeah.
Because like in my life, one of the biggest shifts for me that happened was when I started learning about this mindset and the fact that our mind controls a lot of our life. You know, as the saying goes, 80% mindset, 20% strategy.
Yeah.
I started asking for the crazy. So when I was, what would I have been, 25, 26 years old at the time, making $50,000 a year on a single income, I wasn't with my husband at the time, like financially.
Mm-hmm.
I decided, I was like, I want to make the dream come true of building a dream home. Like I had been looking at the starter homes with a real estate agent and it just wasn't like resonating with me. And I was just like, no, this is not what I want. I want to be able to build my first ever dream home, make money off of it, sell it, and like, you know, basically start real estate investing. And it seemed like an impossibility. But I just kind of went into the what if it's a possibility? What if I could like make this a reality? And holding on to that what if, like all you need is like a little hair thread of faith in the dream and just staying there with what if this is a possibility, because that what if led me step by step to the encounters, the scenarios, the people that then opened the doors to make it a possibility. Before I knew it, that dream then led me to buying a piece of land, having no idea what I was doing, but step by step, finding the person to do the foundation, finding the person to do the framing, like finding all the pieces. But I just had to show up for, I desire this and it is a possibility for me. And so I'm just going to kind of leave that there and just do whatever I can right now from where I am.
I love
and
that.
I did it.
You're getting so much love on Instagram as well. And that's the thing. I love how you follow that up. You're like, and I did it.
Yeah.
Because you're like the example of like, and like what I'm interpreting, you know, what you're saying here to mean is like, don't focus on the gap, just focus on the first step.
Yes, exactly. And it might seem like, well, here's a practical thing that I teach my clients to kind of fill that gap and for it not to feel so far away is I call it the miracle moments. So we often disregard the small, insignificant things that happen along our journey. And we kind of only give ourselves credit when the actual thing manifests, when the actual thing, we can see it, touch it, feel it, or whatever. So what I did instead was I focused on what are the little little specks of like crumbs that are along my journey that the universe is basically giving me like a little nudge, like, yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you. And so, for example, the first breadcrumb was me talking to, so at the time I was working a 9-to-5 job. It was in commercial construction. And I was talking to a contractor and we just got talking about his personal life and what he was doing. And he was like, yeah, I've been, personally outside of his business, he's like, I've been building some homes and selling them. And he's like, I'm just selling, my home, another home that I just built. And I'm making like, I don't know, $50,000 off of it. And I was just like, like,
your ears pricked up.
Right? My ears pricked up. I'm like,
more.
Right? So that was a breadcrumb of like, okay, this guy is doing it. And then I can ask him like, he was, God love me, he was so open about it of like, his costs and that kind of thing, the time frame. And it's like, okay, so whilst I didn't at the time have the money in my bank, didn't know the how, that was my breadcrumb of the universe being like, okay, here's a conversation, here's getting the ideas going. Next thing you know, I'm sitting down talking to, a close relative, telling them about this conversation that I had. And next thing you know, this relative is like, I'll lend you the money to purchase the land. And I'm just like, what the? But it never would have started unless I had had that conversation. So don't disregard the people you bump into, the conversations that you have, the crazy ideas that you get when you're in the shower or like driving in your car that day. Like, don't disregard these little miracle moments. Write down daily, what are your miracle moments? Actually, I'm looking around because my miracle moment journal is over there. I'm at a hotel here now and I brought it with me because I wanted to keep my miracle moments going of like, how is the universe supporting me today? Whilst I don't have that $1 million in my bank account that I know I'm going to get one of these days, how is the universe supporting me on this journey, and how can I acknowledge it and express gratitude today for it without having actually seen the tangible thing just yet.
Yeah, so it's feeling into it before you see it.
Yeah, and not only even feeling into it, but also like acknowledging that it's like it's already done kind of thing, which I know might sound crazy, but it's kind of like, I don't know, what's a good analogy I can give? It's basically, if you think of like the best chocolate chip cookie recipe ever, it's like acknowledging all the pieces of the recipe now, knowing that putting them together, you're going to get the chocolate chips at the end of the, or chocolate chip cookies at the end of the day, which I know sounds like a silly example, but
No,
truly,
I actually love that.
right?
Yeah.
It's like baking powder, thank you. Sugar, thank you. Flour, thank you. Chocolate chips, sneak one in now. And then it's like, and here's the other thing I want to say to that point is, when, like, let's just say baking soda or baking powder on its own tastes like shit, right? If I gave you baking soda and said, hey, Brooke, like, eat a tablespoon of this, you'd be like, that is disgusting. I'm not going to do that. You put that into a batch of cookies, you'll make a killer ass batch of cookies. And if that batch of cookies is missing that, they'll fall flat.
Yeah.
So don't disregard in the moment the seemingly distasteful or uncomfortable, or maybe in given appearances like not a good thing that's happening in the moment, because it's all combined going to give you the best batch of damn cookies you ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me actually of I use a similar analogy in my business mentorship when I'm working with my clients, in actually allowing the process to take place in a specific way, which is slightly different to what you're saying, because I know you're very like go with the flow. In terms of like business strategy, I'm like, don't skip steps.
Yeah.
Because if you're making the cookies and you're like,
Yeah.
F it, I won't bother with the eggs, like I just want to get it in quickly,
Yeah.
you're going to end up with a really rubbish cookie, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually like, and I love that you go back to the faith, you know, having the faith piece, because it's like the faith for you in firstly owning the dream of like, I want to be able to work on this project and have this opportunity, was actually like you owning it and verbalizing it to that family member was the thing that allowed it the dots to start connecting, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of it, because I think sometimes when we've got a big dream in our heart, it can almost feel like embarrassing to talk about it because you're like, it hasn't happened yet, or it seems like really big and silly.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, talking about it with people that will relatively understand you. And sometimes, I mean, even in some of the law of attraction books that you read, they'll say, don't tell anyone, to kind of protect that energy. So, you know, in my case, I felt good in sharing it with this family member, but for some people out there, it might just be telling it to themselves that that's like their protective zone, and that's okay. You don't have to share it with everyone and anyone.
Yeah, and my take is that there's actually a balance. I'm like, talk about it, but talk about it with people that are going to support you. Like, it's about, I think, speaking to the right people about it that are going to support the dream that you have, that are encouraging and positive.
Yeah.
Being choosy about who you share with, but ultimately I think verbalizing it gives it power.
Yes, and being okay when people disagree with you. Because even like, and I know it just came off as a joke, but even this hotel, so just to give a little backstory, I'm doing a TEDx speech next month, and I'm also writing a book. So just last minute, I decided to book this lovely hotel room. I'm right next to the ocean, give myself a little solo retreat the last day and a half to go write. And I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she's like, what are you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm checking into the hotel to go do some writing. And she's like, you're just checking into like it's like down the street from you, like just to go write? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so you're just going to spend your money doing that? I'm like, yeah. And jokingly, she was like, must be nice to have money like that. And I was like, yeah, it is really nice.
Like,
and I
remember that identity.
Yeah, right. And so like I remember when I started traveling more, and I was still working my 9-to-5 job, but my side business, which is now my full-time business, was bringing me in enough income that I could go travel more. And the people at work would say to like those little jabs at me, like, oh, must be nice to be going on a vacation this week or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it is really nice. So being okay with people disagreeing with you, because not everyone's going to get you, and that's okay, because we're doing things that are against the grain for like probably 90% of people in this world.
Hmm.
That's why we're badass rich women.
Love it. And you continue, this is the thing for me, and this is why I love you so much, is because you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk, because you've done so much more than, you know, get into the real estate, you know, side of things, because obviously you are the example to the women that you coach.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, own what you want, go for it, succeed.
Yeah.
And you're doing that in so many ways, like even with you like just doing a cash drop on like and right now I'm writing a book, so that's like a really big like bucket list thing for you, right? It's like you just tick one thing off and go on to the next and go on to the next, and it's like you're hitting some really huge milestones. And
one of the things I want to add to that, because like doing a TEDx talk has like scared the bejesus out of me. I don't know if that's a Newfoundland saying, but anyways. And like randomly enough, this is totally random. I have no idea where this is going to lead, but I don't know if I was even telling you this, Brooke. But the other morning I woke up and I had this inspiration to sign up to do Pilates teacher training, because I've been doing Pilates for 14 years now and I love it. Did I tell you that?
I know you love Pilates and yoga, but I didn't know about this particular update.
And so I literally just emailed this company to sign up for their Pilates teacher training. Like, I have no idea where that's going to lead me. But here's what I want to say about that, is that there's a quote I love, and I wish I knew. I didn't write down who said it, but I tell my clients this all the time. I say, you have to show up for the scary thing when it presents itself. I'm fooling up here now. You have to be. Okay, here's what it is. You have to show up for the scary thing when it presents itself if you're serious about changing your life. That's what it is.
And that's like, getting into this portion of the conversation really excites me, because I continue to make like what I call shit my pants decisions.
Yes.
It never gets easier, no matter what level you are at in your business. It never gets easier. And it's like, I actually was only having a conversation with another, you know, work friend of mine this morning, saying like, I've just made another like terrifying decision, but I know that I need to experience that fear again. It's almost like a positive fear of like, I now know that I've got a new mark to step up to, and it motivates me to get there instead of like coasting.
Yes. So like, if there is, and that's the thing, like desires and things that we want to manifest most likely aren't going to be easy or like fearless. But we got to show up for it, because like the TEDx talk, like you got to push through that fear to get to the manifestation of it, to get to that desire. Like right now, and then I've worked on it even just the last, like now that I'm like deep into my speech, like I've worked a lot on the nerves and like, can I do this? What about judgment? Blah, blah, blah. And now I'm starting to feel pretty confident. But you bet, like I was like this close to not even applying for TEDx because I thought I wasn't good enough. But I did it anyways, because I had committed. I had wrote on my desires list, I want to be a TEDx speaker. And so when the opportunity presented itself, actually speaking of breadcrumbs, I didn't even know that opportunity existed. Somebody reached out to me being like, hey, TEDx is coming to St. John's. I think you should apply. And I was just like, like I hadn't seen it anywhere. And I applied like in the 11th hour, scared shitless. And then like they have a few rounds of interviews. Anyways, I ended up getting it. And yeah, I'm scared shitless, but is it going to catapult me forward to even more greater and better things? Absolutely. So you get to do the things scared. You get to be that woman on stage, be that woman with the real estate investments, be that woman making the money, whatever it is. You get to do it imperfectly and scared, but you don't get to do it if you don't show up for it.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that so much. I'm like, yes. Oh my God, like we're so on the same wavelength. Hence why, again, like we have these conversations. But I can say again, like I can so relate to that, because what's really interesting for me was I had a similar experience right at the beginning of my career. And I remember I was so young at the time, but someone that I barely knew back in the day where jobs were advertised in the newspaper. Someone that I barely knew, and I mean like literally I'd met her once briefly, flung me a newspaper one day and was like, there's an amazing job that's come up, I think you should go for it. It's an industry, it was in the beauty industry, it was working for Chanel, it was a managerial role, I had zero experience. And I was like, what, like this doesn't even make sense, like where has she even got this crazy idea from? And and it took, I have to admit, like it took me a while to like consider it. And then I was like, well, what have I got to lose?
Yes.
Went for the job, got the job, and then I almost had to like get my head around like, have they hired the right person here? Like, did they make a mistake? Like, have I misled them in some way? But it ended up being like the making of my career, because without that I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the career that I have, the background that I have, be in beauty, get to help women in the way that I do, you know, have my own business. Yeah. So it's amazing. And I love that you're so transparent about saying like the TEDx thing felt scary when I went for it. And I considered not doing it just in that split second, because I think that sometimes it can be perceived like, at the level that you're at, like earning hundreds of thousands of dollars in your business every year and having so much success, I think sometimes it's very easy for people to be like, it's easier for her because she's already got the stuff. And it's like, no, you're still a human being at the end of the day. No matter what level you're at, it's still scary, like fierce fear at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. And I think, like I like to say, it's not fair for any of us to put people on a pedestal like that. Mm-hmm. Like even the best of the best of the best, everyone is scared. And so I think we let ourselves off the hook when we're like, oh, easy for Emily or easy for Brooke or easy for whoever, because they're more confident, they have more skill, they have whatever. And, you know, it's just simply bullshit. Like, it's not true. I mean, maybe, yes, we've done the work to get like more, like hone our skill and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like you have fears, I have fears, all of us have fears, but we just keep showing up for it. So, you know, to people watching this, don't let yourself off the hook by just saying easy for them. Like, no, like it's easy for none of us, but those who get there are those that just say, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway.
Totally. Yeah. And it goes back to what your earlier point of like, put your hand up.
Yes.
Like metaphorically, like energetically on a universe level, like raise your hand and be like, yes, I want this. And yes, I'm available. And like, it's like buying the lottery ticket. Like you can't win unless you buy the ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, even now, like Brooke, you and I were talking about this week. Yeah, I think it was this week where, you know, I was talking about like raising my salary and like, it's like, yes, my business is doing financially well, but like I take a salary for my business, and just even like raising my hand to like increase my salary feels like a big shift for me. Cause it's just like, cause of that old programming of like, well, you get this much, but beyond that, like, do you really need that? Whatever. But it's just like, so now, and I share this because like no matter where you are, there's always that new level. There's always that new expansion and growth. And so now I'm practicing with the energy of like raising my hand for this new salary, this new level to be financially supported, you know, with even more. And it feels weird and uncomfortable and awkward and goes against kind of my grain of what I was kind of embedded of like what's okay to receive. Yeah. But it's really good for me. And I haven't quite locked into that yet, but that's okay. I'm going to keep moving forward and just be like, what do I want salary wise? Because I know once I lock into that, my business is going to grow even more once I like shift and make that shift.
It's like incrementally like raising the thermostat, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Climatizing to a new level in business.
Yeah.
And like you said, I find that when you do that, it's even like making the scary decisions we talk about on an energetic level by opening yourself up and allowing yourself to go through that process scared. It's like do it scared, but just do it.
Yeah.
You receive so much more than what you expect. And I definitely come from personal experience, and I know that you can relate to this. Is like you raise your hand for something which is courageous, and a lot of the time purely in the courage of raising your hand and actually like owning what it is that you want, you receive so much more than what you could have possibly imagined.
Exactly. Yes. And we got to take the first step. Like that's what I find every now and then, you know, the universe will kind of like, you know, do a little mini first step for me, but like 9 times out of 10, I find that I got to do the first step. I have to take that first leap. I have to like increase the salary. I have to be the one to apply to TEDx. Now, the universe supported me, like with the TEDx example, it gave me my sign. I asked like the night I was applying, I was like, universe, just like, give me a sign, like show me a turtle. And then like minutes later, I saw a turtle and I was like, oh, okay.
Yes. I remember you telling me about that. You're like, there's no coincidence.
Right? So I get that nudge. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I still have to like click the send button. I still have to do the application. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we got to take that first step.
Love it. I'm going to ask you something that I find to be like a real nitty gritty question. I
Mm.
also recognize I'm totally putting you on the spot with this. But one thing that I was really open about in us having this conversation was talking about like owning what it is that you want, and you obviously being the example, but also like the action steps to actually being able to, whether you're in business or not, you know, being able to like own the money that you want, the joy that you want to experience in your life, the clients, if you are in business, the opportunities, like whatever it is that you're like really dreaming of, the thing that's on your heart.
Yeah.
But I know for myself, not all of the time, but a lot of the time that requires investment in yourself, right? Obviously, like your clients invest in working with you, my clients invest in working with me, whether that's on like the beauty side or the business mentorship. Mm-hmm. But it definitely takes courage. And I go back to this whole like, you know, taking that leap of faith and believing in yourself. When someone is at that point of like, I know that I need to do something or get help or like take an action step towards changing my life or owning my potential, like we talked about earlier on, what advice would you give to someone that's like on the cusp of like taking that leap of faith and knowing that they need to invest in themselves? Because obviously you are a wealth and abundance coach, and mm-hmm. having the faith that that is going to pay off. Because I find it to be a really courageous step, especially if the reason you're investing and working with someone is because you have like money limitation.
Yeah. I think the best advice I can give is be brutally honest with yourself. And one of the best things that I actually, in hiring a coach, my coach told me a couple of years ago, because I asked her basically a similar question of like, because she had personally done, and actually, no, I should say business wise, made a big move where she had put down a lot of money to host an event. It could have been a big success or it could have been a big flop or somewhere in between. But the big flop was definitely an option. And so I basically said to her, like, where did she get the courage? How did she do this? And point blank, she was just like, essentially, you know, we come at this kind of crossroads where we can either decide to move forward with the thing. But the thing that we got to get brutally honest with ourselves is that in not deciding, it's not that you stay where you are. You actually shrink. And that is not a fucking option anymore. Like not letting that be an option. And so stop fooling yourselves in thinking, if I don't do this thing, it's okay. It's like, well, no, what's going to happen if you don't do that thing? And so like for me, once I tune into that, so a big thing that's helped me in 2020, and I believe you know, I think you know this, is that I told myself, like, there's not a chance in hell that I'm getting to the end of this year without having gone all in. Because on the flip side of that is complete and utter, like, disappointment in myself. Mm-hmm. And so for people wondering and kind of like pulling that trigger and finally making that leap of the investment, it's like asking yourself, like, well, what's the alternative? Are you going to not do it and just sit at home and like try to figure that shit out on your own? Or are you going to take the risk and invest? And like even playing out the worst case scenario. So like, let's say you invest and it's not the best experience you've ever had. It's not whatever. So what? Because I truly believe that every single experience that we have is meant to be and actually has a lesson in it. Yeah. And so, and the other side of that is to not evaluate too early. So I think so often when we make these investments, like we're like nitpicking every single aspect of it, of like this coaching call and that little bit of it, or whatever. And like when we can get in our heads about that stuff, we really don't get to experience the full lesson and the full teaching of what it's giving us. So if you can just kind of give it some breathing room and breathing space to be like, I'm going to get exactly what I need out of this. And be it in the immediate, you know, experience of doing that program or months later or years later, perfect. Because I mean, even Brooke, you and I like connecting, if I'm like totally honest, you know, you and I met through a program back in 2015, which at the time I was kind of like, the program was okay. But, and so if I had judged it in the short term, I'd been like, could have taken or leave that program. But the people I met have been invaluable to my business and my success because I went on to connect with the women in that program, stay connected to them, literally have friendships from that point onwards. Like you, I still talk to. There's a few other women in that program I still talk to this day that have led me to bigger and bigger and greater things that like hands down have like changed my life, changed my business easily.
And I love like that you give that like tangibility in talking about your experience with that, because it's like you actually never lose.
Yeah.
And it goes back to your whole message around faith. Like, have faith that it will work out. Have faith that this is supporting you in the outcomes that you want. But the reality is, if you don't take that leap of faith and have the courage to do the thing, invest in yourself, take the action, it's not that you get to stay in. It's not that the alternative is staying in your comfort zone. It's that you actually like shrink. And like you said, and I know that you and I are really similar in this respect, is like the biggest disappointment is like not reaching your fullest potential. So like you said, like the worst thing to actually not have the faith and have the courage and take the leap is forever knowing that you didn't.
Yeah.
And having the disappointment knowing that you stay where you're stuck, or at the level it's plateau, like whatever it is, like just basically like you're capping yourself, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just giving yourself the potential to completely expand.
And I experienced that in 2017. I got to the end of, was it 2017? Yeah, I believe it's 2017 or 2018. I can't remember now. I got to the end of that year and I was like, and I called bullshit on myself because there were things I was talking a talk, but not walking a walk. And that pissed the hell out of me. And so the next year, my theme was daring greatly. And so for the whole year, I dared greatly. The whole year, whenever something came up that I wanted to say no, I said yes. Like, relatively speaking, if it was something that genuinely was a no, I would say no. But hosting my first retreat at this beautiful location, I said yes. It like sold out, was a huge success. Saying yes to launching a program, I said yes to it. It was a huge success. Like, I just kept saying yes to where the fear wanted to say no. And I had a friggin' incredible, I think that was it must have been 2018, because that was the year that I hit my 6-figure year, my business, was that year of daring greatly.
Yeah. And like just interpreting that daring greatly means feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right? Like those things felt scary to you each time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it could have been a flop. I had to book that retreat space. I had to put $3,000 down. Now, no, for some people it might be huge, or some people might be not at all. But anyways, for me at the time, it felt like a huge investment to put or maybe it was more than $3,000. Anyways, it was $3,000 to put down on the spot, and that was it. If I didn't have people sign up, that was it. I was out that $3,000. But I did it anyway, and within a couple days, I had 4 people sign up for my retreat, and it was a small one anyway, and so it was just like incredible, just like saying yes to that thing, and the universe showing me the clients.
Yeah. I love that. And something that I was only saying to you the other day was like getting more comfortable with the discomfort of making scary decisions.
Yeah.
Because through repetitive exposure, yes, it feels scary every time, but it's almost like it becomes familiar. Have you noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. Like, pretty much any investment I make now, behind the fear is a solid yes.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Like, even real estate investment, like I still keep that up to this day. And like we made a purchase of a new property back in February. And there was I was like this close to not signing on the dotted line to say like, here's our offer or whatever. I was so close. My husband was just like, just fucking sign the line. Like, I was like, really? Anyways, but behind that was this solid yes, like behind that fear. And I'm so freaking glad that I just like pushed through and signed on that line and sent it off, because we got the house and now it's a freaking like gem of an investment. It's like a unicorn of an investment. And I'm like, can't wait for my next one.
I love it. I also love that you talk about how he was like, just get it done, because sometimes we do need that nudge, don't we?
Oh my God, I love my husband for that, because he's so like no BS, like just straight talking, can like really talk sense to my ego, and my ego's like, but what about this and what about that, blah blah blah, and he's just like, one of the best things he ever said to me was, I called him from New York last year when I was at an event, and I was like, super in fear mode, doubt mode. Am I good enough? Blah, blah, blah. I felt like a small fish in a big pond at this event. And I was telling him about all these fears and that kind of stuff. And he just said to me, like, so nonchalantly, he was just like, it's a waste of time to doubt yourself. And I was just like, shit. Like, he was so right. It's just a waste of time to doubt yourself. And I've taken that, like, in my life now, like, put that in my back pocket of, like, it is a total waste of time to doubt if I can do this, doubt if I'm enough, because I am enough. And it's just the ego that's telling me that I'm not. And so, yeah. Just keep that with me.
And it's so funny because I feel like we've come full circle in the conversation, because we started out by recognizing that it tends to be easier for men in that respect. Do you think it's because we emotionalize things more? Because men are very like get shit done, is in terms of like the typical masculine energy, right?
Yeah, and sometimes I gotta channel that. Like I love how women, we have the two, and like when we can balance the two, the feminine and the masculine, like it's like a real golden sweet spot.
Combo. Yeah.
Right? And so I think that as women, like, I don't know, maybe this is purely my own opinion, but I think as women, it's probably easier for us to tap into the masculine than it is for men to tap into the feminine.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of cool, like, you know, having my husband there to kind of like talk straight to me. And then also internally for myself, some days just to be like, all right, channel the inner, like, the fuck it part of me, that masculine, just like the doer, and just go do the damn thing. And when I can channel that, shit gets done.
Love it. Love it. Before we wrap up, I also have a question from a gorgeous client of mine. I thought this was a really good one because she knows that I'm all about, you know, the mindset and focusing on really choosing to be positive in what it is that you want and going for it. And her question was awesome because she really wanted me to put this to you. She said, is positive mindset alone sufficient to manifesting opportunities, or do other factors come into play?
Yes and no. So what I mean by that is positive mindset alone, I believe, will have you noticing the opportunities that are in front of you, versus if you had thought negatively and thought, you know, this can't happen, whatever. Well, like, what you focus on, you'll find. So if you're telling yourself this can't happen or it's not possible or whatever, you will find that and nothing will happen, or like, you know, something will happen, but for the negative, to your detriment. So I think, yes, positive mindset allows you to seek these opportunities and see them, but we have to take action, because, you know, one of my sayings is mindset without action is bullshit.
Yeah.
And so I caught myself back in 2016. I had been doing all the mindset work, thinking positively, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I wasn't taking any action, because really the true thing that was driving the bus was fear. And afraid of judgment, afraid of screwing up, afraid of whatever. And so I thought, really, that all this mindset stuff that I've been telling myself, in the journaling and the meditating, all that kind of stuff, great. But if I'm not taking action at the end of the day, like, it's all bullshit. And so it's like that sweet combo of, like, yes, the positive mindset and the thinking, you know, powerfully and knowing what you want and your desires. And when you feel that inspiration, or maybe not even when you feel the inspiration, because sometimes you got to go out and make the opportunity for yourself. Like, go and take it. Yeah, that's what I say to that.
I love that. And you actually like gave it a ratio before, because you were like, it's like the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
And it's, I completely agree with you on that as well. Like, the way that I coach my clients, it's like you have to have that combination, because I'm like, you can't sit on the sofa meditating and wishing for your dreams to come true if you're not taking action. Otherwise it's wasted energy. Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it'll be presented to you, which is awesome, and then sometimes you kind of gotta take more of a proactive approach to it. Like, even the Pilates training, I had done my work, had researched into it. I thought it wasn't a possibility from what I saw online, but I took it, and it would sound so stupidly simple, but for me, it was a little bit of a scary thing, where I was at my Pilates class the other day, and I just, like, said to the instructor, meanwhile the head was going, oh my God, what's she gonna think? She's gonna, for some reason I was scared of some random shit that was gonna happen. But I just said to her, like, you know, I've been thinking of doing Pilates training, like teacher training. And she was just like, oh my God, yes. And like, then like gave me like XYZ on how to make it happen that I didn't know based off of my research that I had taken. Based off my research, I thought it wasn't a possibility because of where I live and where they're doing the training and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so now it's like happening. And I mean, I don't, just because some people might be like, why is she taking Pilates teacher training? Like, I don't know. But this is kind of like where the feminine comes into play. I'm like, I have no idea why I'm taking it. It just feels freaking good. And who knows? I don't know if I will actually teach. Maybe I'll teach for fun. Maybe the teaching will lead me to new amazing clients. Maybe I'll be able to then teach at retreats that I host. Who freaking knows? But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. And that's another thing of like, with manifesting your desires, sometimes we can like try to be piecing all the dots together when that's not actually our job. My only job right now is, I know I got the inspiration. One morning I woke up and was just like, just go do that. And the ego keeps wanting to like take me down, take me down, take me down, and be like, but why do you need that? It's going to be so much time. Like, and you're going to teach classes. Like, who's going to show? Like, it's telling me all these things. But at the core of it, I'm just like, I have to trust in this calling. And so that's what I am doing. I'm just trusting the calling and just seeing where it leads me, and just trusting that that calling came to me for a reason, and I will soon find out why, but I don't know yet.
I love that. It's like you've just, and there doesn't need to be any more of a reason at this point, right? Other than the fact that, like you said, it feels good.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point is, like, I go back to the fact that you are the example. Like, you do the mindset work and you're constantly taking action, even when it doesn't all make sense.
Yeah, I know. A lot of things don't make sense. I closed down a membership the other month that brought in $50K of income a year. That didn't make sense. But the next month I did $100K in the next month. Like, that makes sense.
But it's like another interesting way that you made yourself available for more.
Yeah, and I know, like, and now the opportunities are opening up for more simpler, more aligned ways to bring in that $50K a year and beyond, that I now let go of by shutting down my membership that at the time didn't feel aligned anymore. It was great. Like, the women are amazing. I love them. But that way of showing up for my clients just didn't feel in alignment anymore. And so I just decided to shut it down. And that was another thing, like, I don't know why. Like, I had actually hesitated on that for ages, being like, but it's working so well. It brings in great income. The clients are awesome, blah, blah, blah. But it was just like, but it doesn't feel good. And so just trusting I need to shut that down, even though it didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Which is super courageous.
Yeah. Yeah. But I had to do it. It was like, I had to, because I couldn't, I just couldn't not. And like, it just was like nagging at me. I just couldn't not do it, because I just needed to know what was on the other side of taking this action.
Yeah, I love it. So for those that are watching that are like, I want me some more Emily, where do they find you?
I recommend going to my website, so emilyking.ca, and I believe right at the top, there's a freebie link somewhere there, quite easily available, where you're going to get a shit ton of meditations from me and affirmation audios. Go check that out. And then if they want it, if people are watching and they know, like, I just want to dive right into some program or whatever, I highly recommend checking out my course, the 40-Day Prosperity Program. It's $197 Canadian, which is like £2. The exchange rate sucks. No, it's more like probably, I don't know, maybe 110, 120 pounds.
Yeah. I know you're making that joke, so we've joked about it before, haven't we? It's like 1,000,000 yens, like 350 quid or something.
Yeah, right? So it's a wicked course. It is so good. It's a self-study course for 40 days. It does the deep diving of the mindset, meditation, journaling. It is so good. So I recommend going and checking that out if they just want to like dive into like some sort of offering of mine. That's a great place to start.
Yeah, I'll second that. Awesome. Thank you so much
for
your time
today.
Too,
didn't you?
Yeah. Thanks for the catch up.
Yes,
Always
thank you,
lovely.
Brooke. I love it. Thank you. And thanks everyone
right,
for watching.
We'll say goodbye. Thanks for connecting with us, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.